So far, we have one one attendee, so I'll give it a few minutes. So it's 11:04. So I think that out of respect for the one attendee, Felicity, thanks for joining us. Just wanted to point out that last night I presented to the Charlottesville City Council proposed budget for fiscal year that begins July 1, 2023. The adopted general fund revenue and expenditure estimates both total $226,239,155, which represents a balanced budget, as is required, and a 7% increase over the FY23 budget. There are many positive economic factors that point to continued growth for Charlottesville. As of December 2022, the city's unemployment rate was 2.4%, as compared to 3% in Virginia and 3.5% in the nation. The citywide vacancy rate is at 4.68%, while the downtown area is at 4.21% as of January 2023. The 2023 real estate assessment saw an increase of 12.33%, and revenues from sales, meals, lodging, tax collections continue to perform strongly. Sales tax is up 3.6%, and lodging tax are up 6.57 and 5.71 respectively. So we had a good discussion with council last night. The city manager's proposed budget for fiscal year 24 is balanced and maintains the current real estate tax rate at 96 cents. Additionally, there are no other tax increases being recommended. The news of a balanced budget using existing tax revenues and positive economic indicators are good news for our city. However, management and city council will continue with face budgetary challenges, as our needs and priorities will always exceed the revenue to support everything we wish to accomplish. However, since the pandemic, the city, like many other local governments, has been fortunate to receive a significant amount of one-time funds that has been able to use to provide substantial investment in key services for our community. Since July 1, 2022, the City Council has appropriated $37.7 million in one-time funds from the American Rescue Plan, and for FY22 year-end surplus. $37.7 million has been invested in several categories. As you look at my letter to council in front of the budget, capital improvements, $10.1 million. Prior year financial commitments, $6.7 million. Community needs and resources, $6.6 million. Organizational needs and resources, $6.1 million. $3 million for transit, 1.8 for economic development, and we still have unprogrammed $3.4 million. We were able to make these investments with those funds that are available. Therefore, we did not see the need to increase the tax revenues for this coming fiscal year. What I'll do now is have Chrissy Hamill, our budget director, share the screen with you in terms of other highlights of the budget. Chrissy?
Thank you. I'll share my screen. Maybe. So this is our budget webpage. We're excited this year to have transitioned to an online budget book. In order to do this, we partnered with OpenGov, which is a software platform that is being used nationwide with roughly over 1,600 public agencies. It allows you to explore budget data down to the line item for every department, as well as providing a multi-year historic and audited financial data, as well as a comparison of the current and proposed budget. In order to access that, if you go to the city's budget webpage, you click on our cover for this year's budget. It will take you to the budget book itself. And from here, the home page is basically a table of contents for all the various sections of the budget. The summary page will allow you to look at a summary of the revenues for the general fund and the expenses for the general fund, as well as all other city funds. So one of the things that we're excited about this year is previously we spend a lot of time talking about the general fund budget, but this gives you a way to look at the total city budget, not just general fund. We're at $359 million for FY24. Moving on, if you click on the operating tab here, this provides a table of content with links to every individual department. You can drill down, and I'll pick on Parks and Rec. If you click on the departmental page, you will be provided with an overview of that department. Scrolling on down, a staffing summary by division. You can look at a summary of the departmental revenues, if there are any. Not every department has revenues. You can look at a summary by division of expenditures. You can look at the funding allocation. So some departments actually are funded cross funds, and they're not 100% general fund. In this case, the Parks and Rec department is. And then finally, you get down to the line item details for the entire department. So these are revenues and then expenses, performance measures that any of the departments are reporting. And then finally, at the end of the screen, any notable changes within the budget for FY24 is we've made an attempt to summarize those here. And then you can click to go back to the table of contents or back to the city's budget webpage. We also have links provided there that will be putting materials from the work sessions. You'll be able to access those. And we encourage you to take a look, peruse the information that's out here, and let us know what you think.
Okay. So this budget does include a 6% cost of living adjustment for employees, 6% increase for employees, 3% COLA for retirees. And the healthcare fund continues at a very strong performance, but there are no changes in premium for employee healthcare costs. And it's going to cost the city an additional $437,000, but we're not passing that on to employees. So I think that those are some of the highlights. We're fully funding schools at $67.1 million. That will cover a number of their capital needs, including $76.8 million in funding to for the Beaufort schools and such projects as the Charlottesville High School roof, etc. So Felicity, you're still the only one on. Do you have any questions?
You guys hear me?
Yes.
Out of everything that it's in your budget, is there one non-negotiable for you? What's the most important?
Non-negotiable with council, you mean? that they cannot change?
Yeah, well, what's your number one priority?
Well, I think that the 6% for we propose for employees is is necessary. I mean, we've had a terrible time losing a number of employees and attracting and some in some critical positions in police and fire, et cetera, across the board. And so we have to do something to put us in a better competitive position with our surrounding jurisdictions so that we can continue to build and maintain a first-rate workforce to provide services to citizens, quality services to citizens in Charlottesville. So I hope that council will see fit to support that increase.
And then my one other question is that with the property taxes staying the same, but real estate assessments going up, will people still be able to afford their taxes on their properties?
I think that that's always a question, and if we had Commissioner of Revenue on, we would be able to kick it to him to see what he's doing in terms of property tax relief programs. Chrissy, you want to make comment on that?
Yes, sure. So we made changes last year, programmatic changes to the chat program, and that remains fully funded. Those income levels were raised last year to $60,000. And we did increase the minimum house value to match the average based on the reassessments, which is $459,000, just over that. So we do adjust some, but again, our commissioner would probably be a better person and could probably articulate that a little bit better. But we are funding those programs in the same manner that we funded them last year.
Okay.
Right. Those are all the questions I have for you. Thank you.
Okay. And we see Hawes Spencer on. You have any questions, sir?
Do I have any questions? Kind of following up on what Felicity just asked. There's been some criticism in regards to the assessments going up, and I heard you say that since the Commissioner of Revenue is not here, it'd be better if he were, but it seemed like outside of this annual budget process, there was a surplus that got spent a few months ago. Can you address that?
Yeah. In my budget message, we laid out the categories that which we have been we spent that surplus. We spent 10.1 million. First of all, there were $37.7 million in one-time funds from the American Rescue Plan and the year-end surplus. 37.7. 10 million or 10.1 went to capital improvements. The 6.7 went to prior year commitments. Community resources, 6.6 million. Organizational needs and resources, 6.1 million. 3 million for transit. And $1.8 million for economic development, and 3.4 million remains unprogrammed. So the capital improvements included the Meadow Creek Trail, additional funds for safe routes to schools, downtown mall improvements, emergency generator for city shelter, the equipment replacement fund, facilities repair fund transfer and transfers to the Capital Improvement Contingency Fund. In terms of prior year commitments, the $6.7 million, the SAFER grant, which is a grant match for 15 additional firefighters. This was a grant we received several years ago. And as those funds wind down, we have to fund those firefighters to keep them on the payroll, and they are needed. Funds for additional debt service for the Beaufort reconfiguration project are also included in the prior year commitments. Community resources, that was $6.6 million. We had funds, increase in funds for pathways. Pathways is at $500,000. That's an increase from $84,000. Though acknowledged, it's less than we were able to provide pathways in over the last year that we responded to their needs, basically with ARP funds. There's a language access pilot program, a land for affordable housing, emergency shelter operations at Premier Circle, Human Rights Commission staffing, affordable housing and homeless service and community health initiatives. The 6.1 for organizational needs is software and upgrades and replacement, the class and comp study one-time uses, fuel volatility, the city ambassadors program, support for human resources department, and public safety retention bonuses. For transit, $3 million. Additional buses for Route 6. This is an equity initiative. Additional funding for 30-minute headway on routes. And then economic development, we did $1.8 million. That's included the convention and visitors bureau funding, Beacon Hill Kitchen that was approved by council, and community arts and festivals fund. So that's how we spent 37 point.
Okay. But what I want to ask is maybe 2 or 3 questions following up. The 2 of the voices I've heard recently are the one is coming from, say, the Buck Squad, saying that the Black children in the community are growing up extremely disadvantaged and enduring family trauma, and that's leading them into violence. So I want to see if anything's being done to answer their concern. Secondly, this is probably a very contrasting concern. There's people who say, hey, you have a big surplus. Why spend most or all of it? Why not put away a pretty big chunk of it, given how large the surplus is, and given that we're moving back toward a more full employment situation, and we might find ourselves in financial distress down the road. And those would probably be the 2 biggest concerns that I've heard. I don't know what you're hearing. Oh, and then the third thing was something that I think you addressed last night at council. Is there any money budgeted for a gun buyback program?
So, first of all, there remains $3.4 million that is unprogrammed that council has to make decisions on, and that gives us some flexibility to address some unprogrammed needs going forward in this fiscal year and next, because we have to spend the ARP funds by FY2024, I believe. So there's some flexibility there. With respect to the Buck Squad, we have encouraged them to apply for the Vibrant Communities Fund. And I understand that they have, so there will be some funding opportunities there. With respect to additional activities for youth in the community, I know that there's one project that we've asked Parks and Recreation to pick up, and we will look at other opportunities as well as we move forward. We're very sensitive to that issue. And what was that covered two of
The
them?
third was the gun buyback idea. Is there any money put toward that yet?
Not yet. That's the chief is spoke with them this morning. We are beginning to discuss that and look at what would be required for such a program. We are going to lean very heavily on the experience from other jurisdictions, and see how we can move this forward.
And
Right.
Mr. Rogers, I would just also highlight from the year-end appropriation, just one small clarification is that it was all allocated, but
Mhm.
not necessarily all spent. So for example, $6.7 million of that is sitting in the CIP contingency, waiting for future plans from council. That's a transfer per policy. So that is there and ready to be used, that could address issues. We also allocated $2 million of that, which is sitting there waiting based on the comp study and collective bargaining that comes forward. And then in addition, $4 million of that is not necessarily a reserve, but that is actually going to debt service fund to help offset the commitment that council made for the school reconfiguration project. So just a couple of, there are some big pots of money. There's also $500,000 that went to the CIP for land purchase for affordable housing, and then $500,000 for the new city manager fund. So they are allocated, but they are not necessarily spent. So we do have some flexibility to address some issues going forward with some of that year-end money still.
Right.
Okay. Is there any and you may or may not wish to address this, but if people are critical that you've allocated too much rather than spent too much, do you care to respond to that?
Not really. People are going to have different opinions. We make recommendations to council. Council will make a determination whether they agree or disagree with the allocations that we put forward. We try to do the best we can in terms of putting the money where we know that their needs are, and where our contribution or our allocation can make a difference and impact.
Okay.
And at least the money that went to the CIP, that all has to go back before council before it's actually spent.
Right.
Okay.
And I also forgot there's $325,000 that was allocated for council strategic initiatives, which they have access to as well out of that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I think that was all I had.
Okay. Felicity, you done?
Yes, that's everything from me.
Okay. All right. Well, good. Thank you for joining us. We are, as Chrissy Hamill pointed out, you can go into as much detail as you like on the website on the budget. There's a lot of information there, and you can dig down pretty deep, as you choose. And if you have any other questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.